Is MAGA a cult? I was just watching this debate with Destiny, and the question comes up. Let's go ahead and check this out real quick.
This right. That's just Travis for flying me out, man. Good to see the audience is great here. So Destiny, yeah, thanks guys. Here. So Destiny, I wanted to ask you this, man. You've stated in the past that I guess that the MAGA right is notorious for violence. You've said this. You've called them degenerates, etc. That Trump kind of insinuates a lot of the rhetoric and the actions of Trump supporters. Am I more or less correct on that?
I don't usually criticize them for violence. I think the tendency, I mean, especially since the BLM stuff, there's more, at least cumulatively, violence.
There really hasn't been much violence other than the January 6th stuff from the right lately, because they won the election this time, and they're getting everything they ever wanted, and probably more.
For
They
left-leaning
don't really have much to be mad about.
people, but I would also kind of expect that right now, given the state of affairs. So.
Oh, okay. So, wait, when you say that you expect the violence from the left on the state of affairs,
As in, like, if you have like a certain system where people feel like somebody is completely and totally out of line, and that person is using the power of the executive to be totally out of line, well, like, what would conservatives even enact violence about? They would have nothing to protest. They'd have nothing to riot over. I imagine it would be probably more left-leaning people that would be rioting.
that would be rioting?
Yeah.
So, like, for example, like the Tesla burnings that were happening, it was all premeditated. They had the Doge.
That's just like an easy symbol that they can attack, because it's pretty symbolic at this point of the Trump administration, and since Elon Musk is such a big part of it with Doge and everything.
DogeChase.com or something like that kind of premeditated all that.
They'll get into
So,
the cult
like,
stuff
my
here
thing
soon.
is that when I look at the Trump election and how he got elected, and maybe I can ask you this. I think one of the reasons that Trump got elected in the first place was because when you say, like, for example, with your other opponent here, when you say the MAGA right is a cult, I'm thinking in my head that the Democratic Party at this point is actually a cult as well.
So yeah, I've heard this for probably ever since like the COVID stuff, maybe a little before that even, about a lot of people on the right thinking the Democratic Party or the leftists really in general are a cult. And I even thought this myself at one point. You'll see these clips of them at these assemblies at like colleges and stuff, and they're having like these bizarre, it almost looks like a religious type experience. Um, yeah, like moments of silence or whatever for like back in the George Floyd stuff, for instance. But okay, so what I would say about that is it's not. Well, let's go ahead and define a cult. So I would say a cult is a small insular group, or relatively small at least, that has a rigid ideology, a charismatic leader, and strict control and some element of isolation. So we can say they don't really have a charismatic leader right now. Like I think in the future, it's possible you could have someone like AOC. She could definitely fill that role, but right now they don't have it. As far as a rigid ideology, they do have their. I would group it into. I would group the Democratic Party into three buckets right now, really. So you've got your standard liberal, like your establishment Democrat. They believe in capitalism. They want some welfare programs and health insurance and stuff like that for everybody. Just pro-abortion, separation of church and state. But they want the freedom of speech and stuff. That's like your normal, average Democrat, and I would say that is the majority of the party. And that's the biggest bucket of the three. I would say the second bucket is your social democrat, right? So they want some method of wealth redistribution to go to kind of like free college for everybody and things like this. This is like where I would put like AOC, for instance, and Bernie Sanders. I would put them into this social democrat bucket. And then, but maybe they don't go quite as far, all the way. I'm not sure exactly what AOC's position is in this, but maybe they don't go maybe they're not advocating for like trans people in the UFC, um, fighting biological women or something like that. Maybe they don't go that far. The third bucket is the most extreme, hardcore people, like the far, far left, you know, critical race theory type people. You've got people that are communists, they don't believe in private property, or they're very, very socialist. They believe in like minimal private property. Uh, these are like the most extreme, crazy, TikTok type people. They're the smallest of the three buckets, I would say, but they're the loudest. And they used to have a ton of influence. However, their influence has greatly dried up after, like Elon Musk bought Twitter, and Zuckerberg's bent the knee, so they got kind of Instagram and Facebook have kind of come back to um, they've lost control of a lot of social media. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. So I don't think they're not united under a single ideology. Now, within these different groups, there is some element of like a group think, especially in the far left bucket, right? But that doesn't necessarily make it a cult. It's just that they all think the same. They don't push back. They just kind of accept things. These groups, social media, they develop a group think. And it's not a small insular group. We're talking about large scale populations. So, and there's no element of isolation. Like you could say that there are echo chambers, and epistemic bubbles, but there's no like going off to, I mean, I'm sure there are examples of it, but most people are not going off and living in some kind of like a commune, or some kind of a way out, way off, like some retreat or something that's like a compound, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. There's nothing like that, like with Scientology, for instance. There's nothing like that on the left. So I wouldn't say the left is a cult. And also by that same token, for the same reason, a lot of the same reasons. Well, actually, let's go ahead and now go over, is MAGA a cult? I'll just address it right now. I don't think it's a cult. And the reason is they do have the charismatic leader, but they don't have the rigid ideology. And it's a national level movement, right? It's not just a small group of people that are like kind of separated out from society. There's nothing like that. There's no like isolation, really. They're right out there in the open on Twitter right now, and just out in the world. So I don't think it qualifies as a cult. What I will say is I do think it is a cult of personality. So how I would differentiate those is a cult of personality would be like a large scale adoration of a leader's persona that's very media driven, appeals to emotion. There's like this idea of the savior who's going to come in and fix all the problems. And, there's not really a firm ideology. It's just kind of whatever the leader decides is best is kind of what they go with. And I do think that Trump and MAGA, they fit every single category of this. And we'll go ahead and go into more detail here in a second.
Regardless of what it is. Now,
who's our cult leader?
Oh, well, here's the thing. I don't know who the cult leader is, but it's the Democratic Party as a whole, right? No, well, here's the thing. It could be a cult without it because, like, for example, vote blue no matter who. You've heard that phrase, right? The anti-Trump tour, like we're on right now. It's a cult that's against Trump no matter what, right? So we've seen this to where Elon Musk at one point had the Tesla vehicles that a lot of left-wing...
They don't really go into too much more than that, so... All right, I'll go ahead and elaborate some more. So, within MAGA, and these are my arguments for why it is a cult of personality. So, you have Trump's like super brash style. He's mean, he's snappy. He's got nicknames for all of his political opponents. He's talking shit. Very funny dude. But his ideas, he doesn't have like a rigid ideology. He's been very consistently against, for instance, illegal immigrants. You'd say that, but there's no like real political ideology other than like a kind of like a general sense of like nationalism, America first. Um, but he does have like this image that he presents to people that he's the savior, right? He can do no wrong. He's going to come in. All the problems that we have are because of right now are because of Joe Biden and the Democrats. Trump is going to come in, fix everything. Like during his campaign, I'm going to fix everything on day one. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to fix that. War in Ukraine, that's Biden's fault. Never would have happened. I'll fix it. He's very short on the specifics of how he's going to do any of it, but he just says, I'm going to fix all your problems. They're all going to go away if you vote for me. That type of thing. And yeah, so really it's like his image, his confidence. He's selling you this idea that he's going to save America, make America great again. But there's really not a lot of like specific substance, right? And then the next kind of category is this media driven presence. Like Trump is doing these streams, or he's out there in the media every single day. He's got his press secretary out there every day saying stuff, pushing narratives. And he's got these symbols, the symbol of MAGA, the red hat. But and also, he will say things. He will say things that are not true. he'll lie, and he'll tell lies such that there's no chance that he's going to get away with it with anyone that is like critical of him. Like they're going to see through it immediately. But he does it and he doesn't care, and he will, no matter what factual information is presented to him, he will never admit that he's wrong. He will always double down, and then he'll repeat it the next time he's on the air, and he'll just repeat it over and over and over again. And like he is determining reality. Like even with something, 50 million in condoms, that never happened. They're eating the cats and the dogs. The Haitian immigrants are. Turns out it was an American citizen that did it. It wasn't a Haitian immigrant. But and then like JD Vance went on CNN and said, well, it was a good way to get people to care about an important issue. So you have this idea of manipulating the truth to get what you want, this useful fiction, generation of useful fictions. Like Trump's smartest or his dumbest followers, they're never going to fact check anything he says. They're just going to accept it as absolute truth. So he doesn't have to worry about them. His smarter followers think it's funny because it owns the libs. It irritates the people on the left. And so they think it's kind of like a funny meme. And plus it's like helping them accomplish their goals. And also they have this feeling that they're getting revenge because now they're using the left's tactics against them, right? So, yeah. So you have this very scary thing where the leader is trying to dictate reality. And actually there was a very interesting conversation, an example yesterday where Trump did this. Let me go ahead and bring that up real quick.
And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute over that.
Wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
Oh, he had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was photoshopped. So let me
That was photoshopped. Terry, you can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay.
See what he's doing here? This is very like mafia style, right? He's saying, I picked you. You've got an opportunity here. Like, you can be my guy at ABC. This is the implication. He's like, you just fucking repeat what I say and you don't give me any pushback and we're not going to have any problems. You're going to be my guy. Otherwise, fuck you. You're fake news. and I'll find somebody else that will. Like, that is essentially what's going on here. So let's go ahead and continue.
I picked you, Terry, but you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture.
So let's go ahead and real quickly. Actually, it's not showing up super well, but you guys can look up the picture. Basically, there's these letters MS-13, right? Or 2 letters and 2 numbers. But this very clearly is photoshopped on there. But I don't think there's 3 different ways to interpret this. I'll go through all 3 of them. The first way is that Trump is an idiot and he actually doesn't think that's Photoshop. He thinks that's actually representative of you guys' knuckles. I think that's the least likely option. The second option is he knows it's photoshopped, but he's trying to say that he's trying to basically just control the reality of it and saying, no, it is not photoshopped. This is how it is. He has literally MS-13 right above the images, the image tattoos on his knuckle. And then the third option, of course, is probably the correct one. It's one of these 2, in my opinion. But the other option is that he's saying that these symbols are representative of MS-13. So you've got the marijuana leaf, the smiley with the X's for eyes, which I would assume is something to do with being high from the marijuana. And there is a cross, a religious symbol, and then there's a skull. And so Trump has this, in this third option, Trump has just decided that these symbols are equivalent to MS-13. Like, he's just decided this, and there's no evidence for this. I've looked into this, and there seems to be no connection with these particular images and the gang MS-13. The gang's symbology guides and stuff that are available, like, there's no correlation there. There's no evidence. So take that for what you will.
And you think it was Photoshop? Well,
Here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine,
No,
sir.
Terry,
I want to get to
Terry,
Ukraine.
No.
He won't let it go.
MS, as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people know.
See, actually, you know what? I want to give Trump the benefit of the doubt that the third option, the one where he's talking about the symbols, but the way he says it here, it really fucking feels like he's actually saying, no, those letters MS and those numbers 1-3 are literally there. That is not photoshopped. This is the reality that you will believe. Like, that is the vibe that I'm getting. I'll let you guys make up your mind if it's option 2 or 3, or if it's option 1 and you think he's an idiot. But I think it's probably 2 or 3. But he's really making it sound like it's 2. And that's the most nefarious option of all.
No longer believe the news because
When
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go on. They aren't there when he's in El Salvador.
They weren't
Take a look
there,
at the
but
photograph.
they're there now, right?
No,
but
they're in
now.
your picture.
Terry,
Ukraine, sir.
he's got MS-13 on his knuckles.
All right.
Okay?
Well, we'll take a look at that.
You do
We'll take a
such a
look at that.
disservice.
We'll take a look at
Why
that,
don't you
sir.
just say, yes, he does, and, go on to something else?
It's contested.
So that guy's done. As far as like with Trump interviews. And for what it's worth, I also looked into it, the accusations about beating the wife. Apparently that goes back to 2021. They had, she filed a restraining order. There was never any criminal charges, and she ended up dropping it, and they never went to court or anything, and they've been back together, and they've been happily married ever since. So it was like a one incident thing. Trump tries to paint the narrative as well that they're estranged and he's been beating her. And his wife says, no, he's not a member of MS-13. you know, has nothing to do with him, and she's been campaigning to get him back. So this idea that he's been beating her and stuff, and it's not really lining up. There's never been any charges filed. You know, take that for what it's worth. So, anyways, so you have this control of the media, right? Like he's trying to dictate reality, trying to set, you know, what his followers will believe, and he'll continue to repeat this over and over. You look on social media, you see guys like the Hodge twins, you see various other MAGA people. They think this is like a serious own, like he's owning the media right now with this, and it's just it's very bizarre. It's a very bizarre thing. You know, and also, you know, with something like the tariffs, for instance, he just lies about the definition of a tariff, right? Like he says that if the United States places a tariff on China, China's the one paying the tariff. You know, that's clearly not true. Anyone can look this concept up. This is such a well-established concept in economics. Anybody can Google it and look it up, but he continues to say it over and over and over again, and he will never admit that he's lying about it. So, but you know, there's no so also he's very good at, in addition to this suppression of the media, you know, he's also really good at suppressing his political opponents. You know, he'll label in his first administration, there were tons of establishment Republicans, and they kind of gave him a hard time and didn't play ball. You know, he started calling them rhinos. You know, stands for Republican in name only. And, you know, the swamp, the deep state, you know, anybody that's against him, fake news, deep state, you know, and he's out there trying to also suppress the media in various ways with lawsuits. Like he filed against, I can't remember which networks it was, for editing interviews in ways that he didn't like, and also suing a pollster place that released polls that he didn't like. And he's going after lawyers and things of that nature that assisted in his prosecutions. So, you know, he's in that way working to suppress opposition. You know, and you'll see in his rallies, he's very good at, you know, getting emotion up there. Like he'll have like Laken Riley and all these or people representing her, talking about her. You know, it's much more powerful to have one single person as like the face of a particular issue. It's a very good appeal to emotion and anger. You know, it's been shown that, you know, people, if they see like a statistic that 100,000 people died, but then they see, you know, a picture of like one kid that died, the one kid is way more effective than the statistic of like the 100,000 people, for example. So what he's doing is very persuasive. And, you know, with the cats and the dogs, everybody loves their cats, everybody loves their dogs. So this type of stuff is very good at, you know, building up anger and emotion and winning people over to his cause. So yeah, I guess in conclusion here, but you know, but there's not like an element of isolation, and there's not and a lot of cults, for instance, you know, they'll have like a closed system of epistemology, meaning like, for instance, like in Scientology, like everything is I don't think they're allowed to get on like the regular internet, right? They're not able to read anything negative about Scientology. You know, it's all kind of like through a filtered lens of approved sources, and there's not anything really like that. It's just that he attempts to discredit media that he doesn't agree with, and then he pumps and gives a lot of credit to media that he does agree with. And so, you know, it's not like a closed system though. So in that way, it's different from a cult, you know, and it's also a very large scale movement, right? Millions of people, not like a secluded away from society. So That's really the argument that I have on why it's a cult of personality. Go ahead and let me know what you guys think. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comments. Please do like and subscribe. Peace.